Hello everyone and welcome to the Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. Belgium used to be one of the most Catholic countries on earth, specifically the northern part, which shares a border with the Netherlands, the region known as Flanders. But like so many former Catholic bastions, Belgium, Flanders, has fallen prey to the hopelessness and despair which comes with modernism and Marxism. However, one young, strong man is not only pushing back, he's also trying to help others see and reclaim the Catholicity of the once very Catholic region. Dries van Langenhove is Belgium's leading activist and comes to his choice after being the youngest member of the Belgian parliament, which he has since resigned from, believing politics in and of itself is insufficient.
About 100 years ago, there was still different alternatives. You had the state, but you also had the church, and I'm talking about the worldly aspects of the church, like the church providing schools, providing hospitals, providing care for the elder, for the sick, etc. But right now, the church has been destroyed or sucked out by liberals, by socialists, and the only thing that remains right now for all these problems of the people is the state. And for every problem we see right now that people are looking at the state to solve them. The past few weeks in Flanders, for example, there's been a big debate about a daycare crisis. And right now people are looking at the state to solve the daycare crisis. So if you would ask in Flanders, but I think anywhere in Europe about 100 years ago, that there's a daycare crisis, who has to solve this? They would have said mothers or neighbors or family, friends. They will solve it, like the family will solve it, or the church will solve it. But nowadays, everyone looks at the state, even for the most basic things, the most basic family values, like taking care of your own children, people look at the state to solve it.
For such a young age, 29, Dries has correctly identified the root cause of his nation's descent into immorality. In fact, it was his not only arriving at the truth of the matter, but then voicing it, that got him kicked off the University of Ghent Board of Governors and out of the school very close to graduation.
The fact that the Catholicism has all but vanished in Flanders is one of the main reasons why right now our society is completely degenerating. We see the normalization of pedophilia. We see American stuff like drag queen story hour. We're going to do an action against that this week. We see all kinds of deviant, degenerate stuff happening right now. And I think one of the main causes of that is the secularization.
It was after being kicked out, essentially for his political views greatly shaped by the Catholic faith, that he ran for and won his seat in Parliament. But having tossed in the towel on politics, he now focuses more on his own growth and doing more grassroots activism. He's opened a gym and uses it as not only a physical training ground for young guys, but also, more importantly, as a way to open their minds. You can think of him as the Flanders Fighter.
The youth holds the future, and what we see right now is that a lot of young people are, even though they probably don't realize it, but they are looking for meaning in their life. And right now, because there's not really a nationalistic or conservative or even Catholic or religious alternative for these people, they will look to surrogates. And these surrogates can be a woke, degenerate lifestyle of partying, using drugs, eating unhealthy food, stuff that really gives a temporary, good, satisfying feeling, a sort of instant gratification life. Or it can be stuff like Islam. Islam that right now has a lot more believers in Flanders than Catholicism. Who would have thought about 100 years ago that it would come to this point? And I'm not looking to blame others. I'm looking to blame ourselves, because we have to provide meaning. We have to provide identity, culture, community. That's what we have been lacking these past decades, and that's what I'm trying to give.
Dries is easily the most famous conservative activist in Belgium, commanding a massive following on social media with up to 1 million views each week. He is of the mind, as we are here at Church Militant, that some people who are of goodwill and as a result open to the truth will listen when you present it to them, unvarnished, and then they'll begin to embrace it. They just have to hear it, which means someone has to say it.
Everyone who is on the search for meaning and purpose in their lives will at some point come to the conclusion that there is something bigger, something that is more important than ourselves, and they will most likely come to the conclusion that religion has provided that role, that Catholicism, Christendom has provided that role for thousands of years. And right now, a lot of Flemish people have turned, or most of the Flemish people have turned their backs on religion, have turned their backs on Catholicism, but what they don't realize is that when they talk about norms and values, when they talk about common sense, using your common sense, well, this common sense, these norms and values, they are coming from our Christian roots. They are coming from these 2,000 years of Christian values. That's where they are coming from. So these people that have turned their back on religion, that have turned their back on Catholicism, they are a product of Catholicism. Those things that are good in Flanders and that are good in Europe and most likely the whole of the world, they are for the most part coming from these Christian roots. And I'm trying to revive these roots. I'm trying to make people see that, even though they may still remain an atheist, even though they may not become a believer, most people that have joined our group, that have joined our movement, or that sympathize with our movement, they realize the importance of our Catholic roots, and that's an important point to make, I believe. And once you realize this, you can gather a lot more wisdom from our past.
Of course, he's not being naive about the one saying it, telling the truth. Like those of us here at Church Militant, he has had firsthand experience of what happens when you get on the radar, run into the buzzsaw of those who oppose the truth. Nevertheless, Dries has a small piece of advice rooted in the necessity of the Catholic faith.
People have to stop doubting themselves, because if you doubt yourself, if you doubt voicing a certain opinion about, for example, Catholicism or conservatism, well, you will lose your persuasiveness. If you think, I'm not going to voice this or that opinion because people might react negatively, and they will react negatively, I can tell you that, you will lose your persuasiveness. If you think, I'm not going to undertake this or that political action because some family members may frown upon me, or I will lose some friends, well, that doubt, that daily doubt, will make sure that you lose your motivation. So stop doubting yourself. If you choose this life of struggle, this life of purpose and meaning, you will end up with a fulfillment. You will end up with a happy life, with a happy family. That's the way to go. And for all these doors, these necessary doors to open, some unnecessary doors will probably close. But that is the struggle that we have to undertake each and every day.
Keep Dries and his developing Belgian youth movement in your prayers. The fight is real, as you know. It's intense, but it contains within itself its own reward and glory. Thank you, Dries, for your work. Keep it up, brother. And when the inevitable discouragement begins to encroach and hem you in on all sides, remember your original zeal, this zeal, and tap back into it as often as needs be. Wherever you are in your faith life, grow even stronger. The faith is not a weapon for just changing the culture, which is, of course, a noble goal in and of itself, but Catholicism is an end in itself, changing men. It is changed men, changed from sinful creatures into fully alive sons of God, who will change the culture. Even in an intense struggle for the country, it must always be faith first. It is faith that changes nations. Nations and their citizens cannot simply use the faith. In the end, God will judge us on our unfaithfulness, not our patriotism. Country, yes, absolutely, but God first. If you'd like to watch the entire interview, please just click on the link below. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.